And welcome to my live stream. I am so honored to have this platform and to have you join me for these weekly events. Today is a treat of extraordinary proportions. It's been an interesting journey here. I've known this incredible leader for quite a long time. It was probably about I don't even want to put a date on it. It's been a long time ago. We did the new gold standard, and he was my guru. He, at the time, was in charge of one of the premier Ritz-Carltons of the world in San Francisco. I had the good fortune of him hosting me there at that location. It was buttoned up and perfect from a customer experience perspective. He is truly one of the great leaders within the Ritz-Carlton family. We had Horst Schulze on a couple of weeks ago, and Horst Schulze, the founder of the modern day Ritz-Carlton Hotel Company, is someone that this particular individual gives some credits to for helping him develop. And quite frankly, he led the brand shortly thereafter. He is also now the general manager of the Beverly Hills Hotel and Bungalows. He's been that for a long time. He's also the West Coast director for the Dorchester Collection, which is just premium, top drawer hotels around the world. He was named the 2017 Hotelier of the World by Hotels Magazine, and I was so honored to be such a part of his time there. And then also you'll find his thought leadership pieces in the Harvard Business Review, in Forbes, in Fast Company magazine. His name is there for you, but better than just having his name available to you, it's time to meet Ed Mady. Oh my gosh, it's good to see you again, Ed. How are you?
Hey, Joseph. Hey, Doctor. Thank you very much for that kind intro.
Well, all right. So let's. I'm going to warn you all. You're going to get a PhD in leadership today because Professor Mady is in the house. You know, even before COVID, there were books like Michael Smerconish, who wrote. Literally, this little tag here is a section where Michael is talking about the incredible leadership that Ed has had at the Beverly Hills Hotel, the beautiful Pink Lady Hotel, and how he's really managed a lot of crises over his time in that high-profile property. So suffice it to say, we're going to talk today about crisis leadership, but let's talk about leadership. How long have you been in the hotel business, and what have you learned as a leader across that journey?
I went to school, Joseph, I went to school to learn how to cook. My first job was in the kitchen for 5 years, and I had a desire to become an executive chef. Did that for about 5 years, got to around the sous chef level, and realized that I wanted to enjoy running a business, and got into a leadership role and did about a dozen years or so in food and beverage, and then jumped fences, and then went into the rooms division, a variety of various roles, I suppose, over those two divisions. I think I probably covered maybe 35 different hourly and leadership roles. And then I became a general manager in the late 80s, working for initially Canadian Pacific, which is now Fairmont. After that was Four Seasons. Had a great stint with Leona Helmsley for around 5 years. Got my green card after I left Canada to go to stateside, New York City. And then after Leona, I worked for Horst and Ritz-Carlton. Horst made me a GM in '88. And from there, I've enjoyed being a business leader of hotels. And right now, enjoying Beverly Hills Hotel and Hotel Bel Air as a regional director.
I'm going to pop me off for a second. I don't know that you'll be. Oh, you're perfectly where you need to be. Who's that? You're getting name drop people on me. I have evidence to prove what you say is true. That's the grand dam of the hotel industry, right?
Mrs. Helmsley probably presented me with one of my first crises when she was indicted. Worked for her for 5 years. She actually fired me 3 times. And rehired me in the same breath, or it was just one of those unusual work experiences. But
I see the Yankees, jersey behind you, so you could have worked for George Steinbrenner, and you could have gotten fired multiple times. And
true, you have to tip your hat to Leona and Harry, as they were pioneers. Harry, Leona's husband, he invented real estate syndication in New York and became extremely wealthy with all of his different partners, having, I think, in the end, somewhere around 230 buildings in Manhattan, which also included 50% ownership of the Empire State Building. So she was quite the enterpriser, and learned a tremendous amount from her. She led by fear, and you had to understand that that was her way. And so that was something that certified me to how to deal with crises on a daily basis.
One of the things that's amazing about you is because a lot of people would have the scars from that and not necessarily say that they learned things from it. I mean, you've been somebody who, in my time of knowing you and all your mentorship of me, I mean, not always the best examples of leadership can be very powerful examples of leadership when you develop your own style, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, in her particular case, and what it is that I think was a great thing forward for myself, and it was a funny scenario as I was being interviewed by Horst, and Horst is very gregarious and he's very animated, as you know, for all the years that you've interacted with Horst, and there'd be once in a while that he would raise his voice a little bit, which was not uncommon, but it was always out of passion. It was never out of malicious intent. And so I used to make fun of Horst because I said he would always come in second in comparison to Leona when it came to her animation.
And again, there's something to be learned from role models that you don't necessarily want to emulate, at least certain qualities of them. You remember what it felt like to be on the other side of it. And I think it empowers you to realize that's not a line most of us can cross, even if it was something that happened in another generation, or you could get away with it. It doesn't mean you should. But let's talk about a philosophy of leadership. I mean, you're writing articles for Fast Company, for Harvard Business Review, for Forbes. You really are a thought leader in leadership while simultaneously leading a premium property, high profile hotel. You understand the industry well. What's your philosophy about leadership? What does it mean to lead?
Well, when you do a fair bit of reading, clearly you're going to benchmark a tremendous amount. And Colin Powell was an individual that popped off the page. I met Mr. Powell, actually, General Powell, in New York. And his definition of leadership is the art of accomplishing more than the science of management says is possible. So I've always loved his quote. But you have to break that down into experience and also into evidence. And somehow, some way, when you start looking at art and science in leadership, you really can't make things up. Right now, all of us are frankly dealing with this whole COVID scenario and understanding what is going on right now in all of our businesses. We were having various meetings this last little while, and I was sitting in the quiet of my home, and I'm trying to make a comparison to what is it that I can compare this particular situation to. So we had around 120 some people on a Zoom call because we were communicating with them on a weekly basis in the first several months of the pandemic. And so I reflected on Miracle on the Hudson back in January of 2009 when the pilot Scully leaves LaGuardia, 150 some passengers on board, and he successfully landed the plane on the Hudson. I'm sure 150 people might be having reflections and nightmares sometimes. The fact that they were in a plane crash, they landed safely, and no one died. And in this particular case, if you want to compare this pandemic to what it is that we're dealing with right now, what are you comparing it to? And you can't. There's nothing to compare it to. There is no experience that any of us have frankly had in our careers. And if there is someone out there that's had this experience, I'd love to speak with you. But if you're looking at focusing and not getting crazed, you want to be able to stay calm. You want to be able to really not illustrate that you are not in control. So you only want to manage things that are in your control. So right now, this pandemic, of course, it's driving a lot of us goofy because you just can't keep track of this thing. So I want to say, if I'm comparing anything here, I would call it the Miracle on the Hudson, and how a lot of us are trying to run our businesses stay afloat, and really focus, and continue to focus on what it is that is in your control.
You know, when I was writing Stronger Through Adversity, I actually give an example using the Miracle on the Hudson there. I think there is one risk that is in there, and I kind of try to address it in the book. I think there is a sense that you need to be a hero to be a leader. I think that's you can take that example a little too far. You know, I even kind of use a different airplane metaphor of, you know, you have to put your mask on first. There is a need as a leader to not deny self-care, to not, you know, give, you know, you're working 20 hours a day. You better rest, you better eat well, you better exercise. You can't say, I got to work 23 hours a day and not do any of the extra stuff. Right. So, I mean, as much as I think that's such a great example, I always worry that people sometimes think leaders need to be, you know, self-sacrificing at a degree that it can't be sustainable. How do you balance it? I mean, I've been with you when you walk into the dining room at the Beverly Hills Hotel and every single celebrity in the planet is coming up to you and wants a minute of your time, which I think kind of is cool, and that almost makes you the celebrity in demand in the room. How do you balance it all?
Well, I think you have to have a method in how you lead your business. And I don't do it alone. You always do it with a team. And if a team knows what your rituals are when it comes to creating excellence in customer service and so forth, and I have a method. And then that method started when we were with Ritz-Carlton and with Horst. And Horst wanted to get the company certified twice with Malcolm Baldrige, 92 and 99. And then that method, that process, that science that I learned had 5 major components, and culture was the center of the focus when it came to how did I certify myself in that arena. So of course you want to focus on culture, you want to focus on strategy, leadership, team, and of course customers. So piecing together a team that understands the philosophy associated with how do you get work done? And an effective culture is grounded in having a collective purpose. That collective purpose and a culture is always aligned deeply and rooted in your core values. So that doesn't happen overnight. That happens over time. And we all know that talent doesn't equal culture. You have to cultivate the talent that you recruit, extract the strength, and make sure that everyone understands what are the priorities associated with running a hotel such as the Beverly Hills Hotel. Now, if I were to talk about this hotel just for 2 seconds, the Beverly Hills Hotel was born in 1912, and the city of Beverly Hills was named after us. Hollywood was built around this hotel. And so this has always been a community asset and has always been part of what represents Hollywood. And of course, Hotel Bel Air, 2 miles away, is another example of having a lot of Hollywood associated with it. So with that in mind, Hollywood has always treated this hotel as their community commissary, living room. And so that Hollywood feel, you know, you never want to get fooled, okay? The most powerful industry on the planet is probably Hollywood. And you need to really understand it. And it's tricky on a daily basis, but I enjoy it a tremendous amount.
So I want to talk a little bit about talent. You know, and we didn't talk about Talent Plus when Horst was on, but there are tools that many institutions that really care about service talent use to help them evaluate it, whether it's Talent Plus or another provider. You're kind of somebody who ascribes to the science of talent, right? Like there is a science to understanding who to select.
Very much so, and with Kimberly Rath and what I've learned with Talent Plus, and that was part of the journey when we were trying to create a brand of our Ritz-Carlton. So to understand talent is about the potential, which is invisible. But if you frankly want to understand strength, it's about performance that's visible. So how do you take talent, extract the strength, purge everyone together, and build a team? And a team, let's define a team. A team is a group of people that make each other look good. So how do you take raw talent that's never, frankly, either worked in a hotel or worked in another culture and so on, and understanding what your collective purpose is? So tricky. It takes a while. You have to get the right fit, because fit is as important as the talent. And then how do you nurture all of that in order to make sure that everyone that's on the team feels valued, has peace of mind, and they also feel safe. And you're not necessarily dealing with things that aren't, what's the word I'm looking for? Every team that you have is going to have its own peculiar personality. And this is what you want to be able to ensure, that you have a method to work within, and you get them all to function with that ritual thinking that creates excellence.
So let's talk about that talented team. You've talked some about culture. We'll get into culture here in a second, but let's talk a little bit about what have you had to do to leverage the talent and the culture you have to respond to COVID-19? I mean, what is it that you're doing different in the context of this once in your lifetime, hopefully only once in all of our lifetimes experience?
Well, I think of Wizard of Oz. I think of a story of looking at the three different main characters of that, where you could lose your brains and you could certainly lose your courage. But if you lose your heart, then you've lost a lot. Keeping heart going has to somehow get everybody feeling really good about where you are and what it is you have control over. And there's a certain amount that you can, in fact, control, but there's also going to be a tremendous amount that you cannot control. So I think regular communication is very, very important. I believe that whether you're doing your Zoom calls, emails, letters, and that sort of dialogue, that's going to be it. But more and more, you have to make sure that you don't find yourself losing heart when it comes to who you are as a team.
So let's talk about heart. I mean, heart to work together as a team, heart to achieve a certain goal in the context of, I mean, let's be honest, the hotel industry has been just handed a heavy, heavy load on this, as all travel, right? So how do you stay heartfelt and optimistic when so much has changed, maybe 70% down on travel if you look at the industry?
Yeah. This didn't start with our team when COVID started. We had a foundation to build on long before that. And as you identified with Michael Smirkonish when he was talking about a situation in the book that he wrote, you have to live this on a regular basis. I'm frankly here I'm in my 10th year now, and we have a team that we've had very little turnover. We have a team that has created a tremendous amount of trust amongst each other. And how do you attribute this heart? So you have to, on a regular basis, understand what crossing borders means when you want people to know that they have to make adjustments. You need to stay on pitch and not lose the essence of who you are. And more importantly, there's new networking that goes on amongst ourselves that is different. So if you look at the heartbeat of any business, in the moment that you have, say, for example, a major resignation, and that person was involved in the fabric of your business, then you have to sort through, well, how do you replace that individual? And you don't. You have to put on a new player, new person that's going to bring a new approach, their approach, but still fit. And so when I have a method, and I talk to you about a method, and it's fairly deep, because you violate team, you violate leadership, if you violate strategy, culture, or anything to do with the customer, everyone's going to know that you stepped out of line. And so that ritual has to be explained daily. And it's not just built by myself. It's built by a team of people that I have in senior leadership and the executive committee, and also managers. And if I'm given the benefit of the doubt, which is probably one of the things that are very, very key, when you're given the benefit of the doubt as a senior leader, then you know that people say, don't worry about it. This is going to work out just fine. And so that intangible, Joseph, is very difficult to describe, because you have to live it and you have to feel it. And then once you live it and you feel it, and then people say to you, listen, I'm in. And then
when I hear words like benefit of the doubt, I always assume positive intent, right? Like that's a key element. Like I'm assuming people are trying to do good. That most Americans wake up in the morning and try to make the world a better place. At least that's the assumption I have until you prove me wrong. And then I got to give you some rope to use your judgment. I got to give you some coaching if you stumble and fall. But all of that said, if I don't, then I just get a mini version of me, right? I mean, isn't that the factor here?
And you don't want that. You want people's personalities to jump off the page. You want to be able to give everybody the sense of freedom. They can have their own vulnerabilities, and you want to be able to catch them. You want to have an opportunity that they can script themselves with who they are inside of the team. So if I were a coach and I'm not in the locker room and all the senior players are in the locker room, I'm not there, somebody will take on a lead role. When you have rebels and soldiers and you have cliques and you have a variety of different things on teams, you need to know how to manage some of that. And that is managed internally by the people that are on the team, not just by myself.
You know, one of the greatest honors in my life, you're not going to be on the screen by my fault, but this is a quick little snapshot. It's a picture of you with Derek Jeter.
Yes.
And then it's an article in Hotel Magazine. I'll remove it so that you're not being blocked out, but it's an article. And then this is one of my happiest moments, I'll be honest with you. You were talking about the board of directors of your life. Mm-hmm. And the people you had on there were like Derek Jeter and Joe Torre. And then I somehow ended up on your list, which meant that you don't know many people. We got to help you get around a little bit more, Ed. But I think what was interesting to me was not, it's the honor of being selected in that esteemed group, but how many people you have associated with who have led in areas other than the hotel industry, and a lot in sport. I mean, I think you're a pretty big sports fan, particularly baseball, and we'll get into that in a bit. But your leadership wisdom calls from, I think, a lot of different sources, right? It calls from hotel industry and business and sport. Tell me a little bit about how you stay open to learning about leadership from sectors other than your own.
I met Joe Torre, 96. It could have been 95. He was the first one that gave me a signed baseball to my collection. And over the years, I started to enjoy not only a relationship with Joe, but a significant mentorship. And he's introduced me to a lot of different people. I sit on board Joe's Safe at Home Foundation board and listen to him often. And, whether I'm in New York and we go out to dinner or whether I'm here, and he introduced me to Derek, he introduced me to Tony. And one of the things that Joe shared with me a while back was, you have to keep getting better to stay the same. And how do you keep getting better?
Hold on a second. I got that one. We got to slow that one down, right? Like you have to keep getting better to stay the same. What is the logic behind that?
He won 4 World Series, and he realized that every time that he needed to win, he needed to trade for players that were in fact going to continue their level of performance at that most high watermark. And so you got to keep changing it up, just because a player leaves 1 year and then you want to still chase the major prize. And that prize is going to be, of course, to win. And how do you keep getting better to stay the same? So you want to keep educating. You want to, there's a difference between education, training, and learning. Not everyone can do all three. And you start looking at different aspects of a rage to master or a rage to learn. You've got to be able to dial into the people that are around you that can, in fact, say, hey, I think we can do this just a little bit better if we approach it this way. And then you listen. And so you look for different tools with people that can contribute to who you are as a team. And myself as a coach and myself leading that business, I have to be able to spot that. And intuitively, you have to be able to spot that because not everything's about you. Everything is about the team. Everything's about the individualized approach that the people take. And you learn that with Talent Plus. You learn that with Gallup Strength Finder.
As you talk about these things, I remember in the new gold standard, I actually had a business principle that said it's not about you. It's kind of like the inverse. The less you make it about yourself, the more you make it about your team, the more successful you become, which is kind of, ironic, I guess, in ways.
Mhm.
I know that for you, the management of crisis has been because you've invested so much in the culture and so much in the team.
Mhm.
So maybe you can just give us a little bit of a sense of how did your culture help you navigate the challenges of the hotel industry almost imploding over this thing? And then how do you communicate with your team, with your customers, your constituents? How do you keep the right cadence so that people pay attention to what they need to hear?
The first question, I think, Doc, is you have to say to yourself, what's the number one mistake that people make in a crisis? And the response or the answer is generally they don't know that they're in one. And if you don't know that you're in a crisis, and then you're going to get on with your life and like nothing's happened, but you have to be able to define the crisis. You want to have to be able to figure out how to survive and then thrive. And so if you understand those three simple things of what's involved with a crisis, and then you're going to be able to get everybody to agree on let's define what we're dealing with. Now, if you were to look at what we're dealing with right now on the planet, whether it be health or political or goes on and on and on, all our businesses are dealing with trying to figure out what is the government going to do tomorrow, and when it comes to changing your food and beverage hours of operation, what are the protocols? So you keep changing and changing. So the crises we've all been dealing with these last 7 months, it just keeps it's a moving target. And so you have to keep making sure that you define it to all your people so they understand what's going on at work. And then how we want to survive. So, all of a sudden you're adding gloves, and then you're adding masks, and then you're talking 6-foot separation and making sure that you're looking at all the protocols, and those are the new rules. So we've defined it. And now how are we going to survive and get market share? Well, it's going to be very difficult until those airlines are allowed to, start flying again. So define, survive, and thrive.
So, all right. So you define, I'm sorry, I missed thrive. I got thrive.
Yeah, you define, you survive,
you thrive,
and then thrive.
I started this recent book, Stronger Through Adversity, by quoting probably not a politically correct character in terms of a former heavyweight boxing champion who's had some challenges of his own. But he said that when, that everybody has a plan until they get hit in the mouth. That's Mike Tyson, right?
Yeah.
And I think for some people, they got hit in the mouth and they were just holding on for the round, right? Like they were just, can I make it to the next round? Some people were trying to win maybe the fight, keep their legs under them for the fight. But then people like you, I think, are playing for 5 years from now, right? I mean, you're not just in the COVID-19 crisis. You're positioning your hotel to endure despite anything that could be coming along, inclusive of pandemics, right?
Yes. And I think you have to have the experience to define what you're dealing with. And when you're looking at experience-based management, or you're looking at evidence-based management, and when Scully landed that plane, it's not like he probably had those simulators that he practiced on, but you can't practice on how to crash landing. And he had focused on the process. He focused on being calm. He focused on keeping those wings level. He focused on keeping that nose a little higher, and he had the flaps open just enough so he could land that plane. So when you're looking at having the experience to define the crisis and then have a plan to be able to survive in it, once you get to that point, and then you're going to be okay, because you're going to sort out how to have the vision to thrive. But it's a long game. It's not a short game. And if someone were to say, when is this pandemic going to have a little bit of an airlift, no pun on words, we're maybe talking, some of the organizations that are talking 11 quarters, which is, pretty huge number. That's 3 years. So let's not get away from, you have to define the situation that you're in, and then have everyone around you agree what it is that you're dealing with, because they're going to sit at home and say, well, am I getting my paycheck, and am I safe when I go to the office? There's a lot of things that surface.
So let's get to the other part. I gave you a two-pronged question. I'm really bad at that. I asked you about culture and communication. Like you could cover both those C's in one answer. So let's break them apart and talk about communication, because right now I imagine the cadence of your communication changed a bit.
Yes.
And maybe even tone. I don't know. I mean, maybe you can give me some sense of how things did change for you from a communication perspective.
Well, first of all, you can't shake hands any longer with your people. So, you'll lose that whole touch and the ability to, do what you've always done, because we're such a high touch environment when it comes to the hospitality industry. And you then make it somewhat impersonal, but you do the Zoom calls, and you get 100 and some odd leaders on a call. We were doing that every week for several weeks. You send letters, send emails. Everyone has my cell phone, and anyone can call me at any time. So that's communication with our people. Excuse me, Joseph, I just need to take a sip of water.
First off, I thought I was going to have your cell phone, so I'm now crushed. I just wanted to let you know, like the shock of shocks. Okay, go ahead. So you want to make sure that everyone, is able to get access to you, and you have availability, approachability.
And then communicating to the guests in the beginning, we wanted to at least let them know that we wanted to stay as close to being normal as we could. I called every guest in the room on a regular basis, and have done that. We created some fun initially by taking pictures of the guests on the red carpet, just to be able to communicate and just say, hey, we care for you, and we want to be able to ensure that you see me, I see you. And all the guests have my cell phone as I write their cards when they arrive, and my cell phone's on my business card. And I identify that in my note. If they ever need anything, they can certainly call me at any time. So the communication thing is very, very delicate, because everyone wants to be communicated with differently. Some people want to read a letter and not talk on the phone, and others want to just talk on the phone and not read a letter. But if you were to divide your business model into two sections, like a sports team, I suppose. You have offense, you have defense. Offense is all about sales and what it is that you do with your sales team. And obviously the salespeople can't really, communicate with customers as they used to. And then defense, of course, is going to be your operations and how to turn over the product on a regular basis. So for all those salespeople out there, I give you a big hug and tell you not to lose any hope of what it is that's going on, because what was old will be new again. And that is those relationships, meaningful relationships. You cannot ever lose that, whether it be 50 years ago or whether it's today. Meaningful relationships is going to keep us going. So that communication point is very, very important. But also, the meaningful relationships with the people on the team is valuable. So everybody wants to have a piece of you as a senior leader. So doing tours and throughout the property is always valuable. Even when you see an employee now, one of the first things out of my mouth when I'm speaking with them is, how's your family? Is everybody safe? Everybody healthy? And because everyone knows what it's like, what's going on right now. So it's just difficult to break down communication other than being intuitive enough to say, hey, listen, whatever you need, I'm here, I'm available, and you have my cell.
I wonder if there is anything that you hadn't seen, or if there are any surprises that have come from this. You seem so inflappable at all times.
Well,
I imagine that at no moment during the entire crisis did you have a little flutter in your stomach or a little sleep problem.
Mm-hmm.
So you can let everyone else know that we're all strange and you're okay.
Well, I had an employee asked me that very same question, and he says, "Are you okay?" And he says, "People like yourself, people forget about you and just want to make sure you're doing good." And I'm doing fine. I had one significant moment, I suppose, during this COVID that I couldn't travel. Personal, my mother had passed away, and I couldn't cross the Canadian border to go to her funeral. And there's several people, of course, that had people. My mom just passed away with old age, of course. Excuse me. And so that day that I got up, and that was a significant moment for myself when you can't attend your own mother's funeral. And that is, I got dressed 6 o'clock in the morning because of the 3-hour time difference, and put on a black suit, white shirt, tie, sat there, watched it on Zoom, and had to pay my respects. And I still haven't been over the border to visit her, but sooner than not, I will. But I think the number one takeaway on that particular moment was we all grieve differently. We all react differently under moments of crises, and that was a personal crisis. But there's always going to be opportunity and danger in any business crisis or something else in your life. And so I look for the opportunity as much as I can with the people that I have around me to help me through. So people that I work with help me through with my grieving, and other personal friends on my personal board of directors. And so,
well, I can tell you that, people who are watching like Sylvia are expressing their condolences for your loss. And, I certainly, from my family to yours,
thank you.
I think no matter how strong you are as a leader, there is stuff going on in your life, and you've got to figure out how to cope with it. We are human beings. We do need to have that board of directors. We do need to have those people we can turn to.
Yes.
One of the other business principles of Stronger Through Adversity is that, we need to leave the island. We need to stop thinking we are some kind of, island person, right? We need to reach out. And particularly, I think, when so much is uncertain, it's almost all the more that we need to figure it out.
And your title of Stronger Through Adversity, you never know how strong you are till strong is the only option you have.
Wow. That just gave me chills. I had to pop off the screen because I just had a little shake there. You don't know how strong you are. Can you state it, or now did I put you on the spot?
No. You don't know how strong you are until strong is the only option that you have.
Wow.
Well, I couldn't leave the board. I couldn't cross over to see Mom. But people will find strength contagious because they recognize that we're all in this together. We have 650 people working here and another 350 at Hotel Bel Air, 1,000 people, 100 some odd leaders, and you have to express what it is. So your book about adversity and strength, strength is defined as what you do well, but true strength is defined as what you do well and enjoy. So how do you extract that from people collectively during these moments and have them understand, okay, this will pass. Everything does. And whatever is supposed to happen always does. I don't want to wish this another time in our lifetime. I never would have believed what we're dealing with right now. But other crises that I've been a part of with the team that I'm around have helped me move through it only because they give me the benefit of the doubt.
So I have all these people who are writing in now. You are the glue to our establishment, people who work with you. You never know what it's like to work for Ed, and until you don't. So it sounds like somebody may have had an experience that worked for you, didn't work for you, and really got an even greater appreciation for what a different thing is. People are saying amen. We get a lot of heart emojis up here on people who are really appreciative of your insights, Ed. So I just want to make sure that as you're speaking, there's just a lot of chatter going on in the comments. Let me go to the word you used earlier, which was opportunity. I'm sure that a lot of people don't think this is an opportunity. They think this is a curse. But for you, even COVID-19 has been an opportunity in the context of your leadership. I think we just lost Ed. He just fell out of the feed right there. We'll wait for him to come back. While we're doing that, I will share with you just something that I prepared while I was getting ready for this. This is, Ed mentioned earlier, and again, we did lose him on the stream, so hopefully he'll log back in. When I was getting ready for this, I think I got to go to this. I don't know which side of the screen I'm going to have to go to because I normally don't hang out on this one. This is Ed getting a signed baseball from the Dalai Lama. I had the good fortune of signing a baseball for Ed, and it's such a weird thing because he's got this collection of amazing people's baseball, just heroically amazing people. And when he hands you a baseball, he's got them always ready, and he has you sign them, and he keeps a collection. It's just such a cool thing, right? Because no matter who you are, you're this celebrity to him, and he records your relationship with them. And the very act of doing this is such an honor to the person being asked. I have not ever come up with a similar parallel to this. I don't know many people who have a thing that they give to somebody to share a part of themselves and then put it in a safe and special place. But the kinds of people, I mean, there's not a lot of folks you're going to have who are going to have a signed baseball from the Dalai Lama. So there he is. He's back with us. I was vamping. Fear not, Ed.
Okay.
You're not worried about me being in trouble. I was sharing how you have created this ritual of asking people to sign your baseballs and having baseballs all over and some of the amazing people. And so I was showing the Dalai Lama's picture there, but I'll take that down and let you finish your thought, and we can talk about baseballs if you want.
Yeah, sure. Since the screen went out on me there, I lost my place.
Well, let's just stay with the baseball thing.
Okay, sure.
How did that come to be, and what does it mean to you? Because I was articulating, I think it's one of the coolest things because it honors the person you're with. It's a record of your relationship. I just don't know anybody else who does it like this.
Well, there we go. Joe signed my first baseball, and then from there, I've had an opportunity and been very blessed to meet tons and tons of people. And so I just started getting people to sign. It started with baseball players, and then it got into movie stars, and then it just got into very prominent people. The most significant baseballs I have are my mom and dad signed baseballs. So I have 588 of them at home. If I were, while I'm speaking with you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to text you a photo, and then if you see the photo, and then I don't know whether you have an opportunity to.
Yeah, I've got it right here.
Oh yeah, okay. So
technology, we'll see the photo. There it is.
Okay.
All right.
So what number? Let me just make sure I have the right.
Yeah, let me get my number out here, right on this. I'm not Ed Mady. Let me ask you about Justin Verlander.
I just sent it to 719.
All right, that's good. That's a good thing.
So that's.
How about Justin Verlander? Is that
well? That was an employee engagement story where Victor, who works down in the pool, decided to play a prank on Justin Verlander because he was in Cabana Cafe, and they just beat the Dodgers when the Astros beat the Dodgers in the World Series. And so Victor calls me up on the phone, and he says, "I think I'm in trouble." And this is, "Why is that?" And this is, "Well, I put $1 million tip on Justin Verlander's check in the coffee shop, and he posted it." And so he posted and said how expensive the food was at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and it was a prank. It was a prank because he's been to the restaurant a handful of times, so Victor had a good rapport with him, and so he didn't expect it to go, viral. And anyhow, I forgave the employee because he was just, having fun. But Justin Verlander is a regular in the hotel, and that went on all the various news networks. It went on ESPN. It was really kind of funny.
But what's interesting to me about that is that obviously you have a culture where people can bring themselves to work, where they can play, they can engage. The celebrity actually engages back with them playfully. It turns out to be a positive story, even though there's probably a moment or two of, "Oh my God, better get the PR rep on the phone. We're about to get arrested."
Well, obviously you can't make that kind of stuff up, and it was cute. It was cute.
All right, let me read this to you. And I can't quite do all the translations I need right now, but suffice it to say that what the picture is, it's hard to everybody to see. That's just all that wall looks like a bunch of dots. Those are all baseballs.
All baseballs.
Huge wall of that's 500 and some odd baseballs right there.
Yeah, and I have a minor complaint to lodge with you.
Oh, good.
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to show you, which I brought from my home. I have your baseball. Just a second.
Wow. We got to make sure it's
I just want you to know I'm going to take it out of the case right now.
Yeah.
And I'm very appreciative of you signing the baseball, but you know
Yeah.
what? It got like blurry. Your
Yeah.
signature, now, so I would like it if you could sign me a new baseball.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. No, I was talking about what an honor it is to be asked. Like, my kids don't care about my signature unless it's on a check to their bank account, right? But for you to ask for my signature is remarkable. So yes, I will sign your baseball, but in return, this can cost you. You're going to have to help me think of something that's parallel so that I can start carrying on a tradition. I don't want to steal yours exactly. I don't want baseball. Right? I want you to help me brainstorm a way to make sure that I can honor people like yourself, so that I can get you somehow to be a part of my forever. So we'll think about that. All right, we don't have to solve that now. Let me just go with a couple of things that are on the screen. Mr. Mady gives you clarity in your purpose. He gives you strength, a name, and allows you to make mistakes and strengthen who you are. I am the best me because of him. I'll even put her on the screen. What do you say? Yeah. Well, how does it feel? I mean, we're going to someday, all of us aren't going to be in leadership. Leadership's temporary, right? Our influence is temporary. We're given this privilege of being able to touch people's lives. What does it mean when somebody says you give them clarity of purpose?
Well, purpose for all of us, it's a moving target because, the more mature we become, our purpose might change if you're going to be an empty nester. Our purpose might change when you want to change jobs. But there are a few things of what happens with purpose when it comes to your motive and your objectives of what it is that you're personally trying to accomplish. So as long as we have an understanding, and as I had shared with you earlier, an effective culture is making sure that you're having a collective purpose as a team. If everyone knows what everyone else's purpose is professionally, and at the same time, personally, there are some people that like to share what their objectives are on a purpose side personally. That's important because that really creates a meaningful relationship between you and others.
All right, one last second. We're going to take one last second. I just want to put one more quote up here for you. Talent is invisible in potential. Strength is visible in performance. Thank you for always investing in turning our talents into strengths. We'll leave Allison's comment as the last comment here. You have done that for me. You have taken whatever potential I have that's invisible and helped translate it into a strength. You are a legend. I am in your corner at any time you need me. You have made the world a better place, Ed Mady. I am honored to know you. Thank you for taking the time today. If you want to learn more about Ed Mady, it's not like we've got a call to action, folks. It's not like go buy 5 of Ed's books or something. Just connect with him on LinkedIn. Just look up Edward Mady on LinkedIn. You don't need to remember this long old title. Just connect with him on LinkedIn. He'll learn from him with his thought leadership pieces. When he writes a Harvard Business Review article, he'll notify you through the LinkedIn. It's just a fabulous way to grab a piece of 1912 Hollywood, modern day leadership, and something that's going to change your life forever. So thank you, Ed Mady. With that, I say goodbye. Until next week, we'll be posting a list of amazing people, including in the very near future, we're going to have one of the H2Os. H2O is the 2 Howards and an Orrin. That's what started Starbucks. Howard Schultz, Howard Behar, my guest, and the late Orrin Smith. Those were the 3 who started Starbucks. So we're going to have Howard Behar on in upcoming episodes. So thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Joseph.
Fabulous day. Take care.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.